And, seeing what you're bringing into this meeting. Taking a screenshot of your inner state, your mind, your emotions, and your body. You don't have to work hard, just noticing. And how stressed are you? And everything you had to quickly maybe finish and put down, quickly eat or whatever you had to do. And all of that energy, now you're bringing it here, and by being aware of it, you are just holding it. So what you're bringing here, and also why you are coming. What's your intention, your aspiration, why you're practicing? Remembering that as well. And then just allowing your breath to take you into your body. And truly landing where you are. And that's also what I'm going to share tonight with you about these bodies, being actually land, sacred land, or part of this planet. Maybe you can feel the gravity which pulls you towards the earth. Which is like underneath where you are sitting right now. Even if you're in a high-rise building, there's earth underneath. It's a living, intelligent earth. Which has been taken care of by First Nation people for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And in my case, I'm in San Rafael. It's the coastal Miwok who have been taking care of this land until European settlers came. So for those, who came a little bit later, we are just landing in the Zoom room right now for another 5 more minutes. And then Irene will start with the introduction. Just giving more people a chance to come online. And we are just at the moment, checking in with our bodies and minds, what we are bringing to this meeting, and also why we have come. And allowing the breath to take us into the body, bringing the body and the mind together. So maybe, Irene, maybe now we could start. If you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, and I am here. Didn't hear a bell go off. I don't know if one went off. So welcome everyone to our Zoom screen Insight San Diego. We're hosting Aya Santacitta tonight, and I am going to read her bio since I don't really know her, although I did have the pleasure of speaking with her on the phone a few weeks ago. And so Aya Santacitta was born in Austria and did her graduate studies in cultural anthropology, focusing on dance, theater, and ritual. She also worked in avant-garde dance theater as a performer and costume designer. In 1988, she met Ajahn Buddhadasa in southern Thailand, who sparked her interest in Buddhist monastic life. She trained as a nun in England and Asia from 1993 until 2009, primarily in the lineage of Ajahn Chah. Since 2002, she has also received teachings in the lineage of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Santacitta Bhikkhuni co-founded Aloka Vihara in 2009 and received Bhikkhuni ordination in 2011. She is committed to Gaia as a living being and resides at Aloka Earth Room, currently located in San Rafael, California, which is where she's speaking from right now. And that is a very interesting bio. Maybe she'll tell us a little bit more about herself, or you can ask questions at the end. And just to let you know, the talk and the question and response at the end are being recorded. So if you'd rather not be recorded, you can turn off your screen or post to the chat, post any questions to the chat. And on the other hand, unless you're up moving around or have a very distracting background, it's nice if you could turn your screen on. I think it's nicer for her, and it's makes it better for us if we're actually active participants in the talk, the listening, and the receiving. And I also want to take this opportunity to just say a few words about Dana. If you're not familiar, Dana is a Pali word meaning generosity or giving. And Santacitta can't actually accept donations since she's a monastic and not allowed to handle money, but I'm sure she and the monastery would greatly appreciate it if you could give to support the Saranaloka Foundation, which is the nonprofit organization that serves as the financial steward for Aloka Vihara and Aloka Earth Room, where she resides. So your contributions will provide the food, clothing, lodgings, and medicine for the monastic sangha and for the day-to-day running and future development of Aloka Earth Room and Aloka Vihara. So, and all donations are tax deductible. So during the talk, we'll post the link to the monastery as well as to the donation page where you can cultivate the practice of generosity. And I think that's all I have to say. So I will turn it over to you, and just thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Erin. So I wanted to, rather than speaking a lot about the Aloka Earth Room, which is a experimental project I have started last year, at the end of last year. It's a contemporary temple space which weaves together Dharma, ecology, and art. And I just want to show you 2-3 photos of it. So I'm sharing my screen now. So that's the space I'm sitting in right now. I'm sitting here along this wall, and this is a cave-like space. And because it's only a rental space, it's still, isn't really fully how I would like to have it. I would like it much more rounder than this, but that's just the prototype. And this is just like another photo. And to give you a kind of a feeling of the Earth Room, which I see as a very supportive, environment for learning more about who we really are, that we are actually participants of this planet and not separate from it, that this is a outmoded, outdated narrative and worldview, which we need to make some effort to mature out of. And that's what I was choosing, as a theme for tonight. I called it working with the 6 elements. And as you all know, that Buddha is on record for having touched the earth on the night of his awakening. And so he did this so symbolic act, of touching the earth. And there's quite a lot of Buddha statues where he has the earth touching mudra, where his hand, hangs down over one of his knees and is in touch with the earth. And he was basically asking the earth to be his witness that he has fulfilled his work, that he has integrated his insights, integrated them, into his being, into his form, this, where we have the word information, which means, that knowledge is going to be integrated into our form, and then we become that. We live from that place. And, his insight wasn't just like a mental realization, but it was also actualized through living accordingly. And, the times have moved on. We no longer live in Iron Age India, and we live now in a very different time. And the challenges, they are still all fundamentally, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and empty of a self, but how they present themselves at this day and age. We have a lot of eco-social challenges right now, which seem to really force us to wake up to the fact that the earth is not something we can control and use as a resource basis. The earth is a living, intelligent being, and we cannot master or control it, but we can understand, that we are not separate, that we are actually the earth. And this is a, evolutionary threshold, which we are now standing, on. And some of us are, really hoping, it's gonna all go away. And some of us are kind of, okay, just like, let's do it, because what other chance do we have? We need to try to find practices, which enable us to take on this challenge of letting go of an old narrative and, integrating the new narrative, to realize, who we really are, so that we can navigate our lives differently, and outgrowing these human-centric stories of separability and separation, and waiting for somebody else to fix it for us, some big somebody, a god or a president or a father figure or whatever, because it's not going to happen that way. But we are the ones we have been waiting for, That's the message. We need to do this together. It can't be done by somebody else for us. And I brought a quote here by Gregory Bateson, who is an English anthropologist who actually lived the second half of his life in California. And he said, the major problems of the world are the result of the difference between how nature works and the way people think. The difference between how nature works and the way people think, meaning us, the way we think. This dualistic thinking process, of our current mechanistic scientific worldview, which is at the root of the polycrisis we are finding ourselves in the midst of. Where our systems start to show more and more cracks, and where we can extrapolate, that it's not going to get better in that sense, but that those systems are starting to, crumble. And we can either, align ourselves with that, what wants to be born, or we try to hold on to that which is dying. And I think it's a much better option, to support hospicing that which is dying with kindness and compassion, and helping that which wants to be born by not suffocating it in expectations and old patterns of making ourselves feel safe, you know. So it's a real challenge, and at the same time, you know, it's also a great opportunity, because we already all have a practice, you know, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. So we already have a lot of support, you know, to meet what is, you know, challenging us, and not turn away from it. So, you know, as these old assumptions are dying, we can use that as an opportunity to grow up and, you know, be willing, you know, to let go of these assumptions of mastery, and become team players with a much more than human world. You know, we have been, you know, seeing everything from our own, you know, human-centric stories, which we have been told, you know, by the Bible and by other philosophies, you know, which were not, you know, on purpose misguiding us, but this was just a certain evolutionary stage. And now this stage is coming to an end. Just as, you know, several hundred years ago, everybody believed that the earth is flat, and then that changed. And at the beginning, it was a struggle, but then, you know, over time, people signed on, you know, okay, the earth is not flat. Let's say that, but maybe the earth is at least in the center of the universe, but that had to be given up too. And then maybe at least in the center of the solar system, and that had to be given up as well. And now it turns out the earth is just like a little speck, you know, somewhere. And we are on it, and it's our home, and we are part of it. So, you know, as we are maturing as a species, we have to let go of assumptions of specialness more and more, you know, just like a child, you know, which is at the beginning, you know, in the center of the universe. And then as it grows up, you know, and as it sees things more and more in context, all of that has to be given up, given up, given up, given up. And that's how we mature. You know, and if we want to protect ourselves from that context, from seeing things in greater context, then we stay immature. So at this moment in time, we are again on a threshold of, you know, for us, it's a threshold of great magnitude, because we have never consciously been on such a threshold, but our forebears, you know, in this line of homos, all different kinds of species, you know, have come before us, they have had to make huge strides in terms of letting go of old ways of looking at themselves, and then, you know, moving on. And those species, you know, who weren't able to do this, they were gone extinct, because either they weren't capable of adapting. And that's the question, you know, for us as well. Are we capable to adapt or not? But we can at least try, and I think we really should, because there are so many other younger people on the planet already, you know, and those who are born today or tomorrow, we need to try, at least for their sake. We need to try to look deeper and find out who we really are. Basically, you know, stepping out of thinking it's all about us. So I think that's a very exciting moment in evolution, you know, for us. Noticing, you know, it's not all about us. And even we ourselves, you know, we are not what we thought we are. We are not just, you know, people walking around on the planet and using what we like, and, you know, it's all here for us. And then we find out, no, it's not like this. We're just part of a huge family, you know, of beings, of which we are just one species and not special at all, and totally dependent and interconnected with everything else. And I think that's a amazing realization, you know. If that starts to dawn on us, we, in the beginning, you know, it's like opening the door into a completely new world. And then as we are continuing to allow this to enter into our being, you know, there's also a great sense of enrichment and wonder, you know, which comes from this realization that we are not separate. And, you know, the practice of the elements, which is one of the practices in the first establishment of mindfulness, the first Satipatthana, if you've heard about that, there's one of those practices is the practice with the elements, 4, 5, or 6 elements, depending on which practice, you know, we choose to try. And there are the 4 great elements. First is earth, water, fire, and air. And then there's also space and consciousness. And, you know, they bring home to us the concept of not self, how it's called in early Buddhism, anatta, not self, or in later Buddhism, it was often called like emptiness. And it's not a nothingness, but it's just a denial of a permanent entity. And noticing, you know, that we are, these bodies of ours are processes. But through our languaging, you know, through nouns in particular, we lose that appreciation of the process nature of everything. And, you know, as you all know, if a child, you know, learns to speak, we teach nouns first, because that is kind of simpler, we think. But then through being so deeply conditioned in this way, you know, there's a lot of truths, you know, which get lost in those nouns, in the thingness of everything, which we unconsciously assume because of language, because we think in language. So, you know, our subjective experiences, all of those objects out there, they're all separate, including my body, separate from your bodies and separate from the planet, separate from the universe. And then, you know, through this practice, we start to individually experience that this is not so. And that's what's so important about this practice, is to have this individual direct experience, because experience fully understood is wisdom. Wisdom is a personal experience understood. And if we do this element meditation, we can, you know, have a personal experience of the process nature of our bodies. Because, you know, the Buddha's teaching on the meditation teaching is all about, you know, paying attention to certain features of our experience in a particular way, different than what we usually do. So it is a prescriptive teaching, not a descriptive teaching. The Buddha doesn't tell us, what earth element is. But the Buddha gives us guidance so that we can directly experience earth element in our own bodies. Through, having a direct experience of the quality of earth element, which is, for example, hardness as opposed to softness. That's just a simple definition of earth element in the Buddhist teaching. And it stands for structure. And water element is fluidity, cohesion, wetness. And fire element is warmth and cold. And wind element is pressure, expansion, contraction. So it's these very simple qualities of the elements which we can consciously experience, and then experience the impermanence of those qualities. And that helps us, to shift the identity from personal to universal, because it's so basic. And helps us, to disidentify these experiences as I or as me. Because we notice, the wetness of the water in my mouth and the wetness of the water in the ocean is the same wetness. This is not my wetness, this is just wetness. So we increasingly experience ourselves as part of nature, and that leads to non-clinging as my nature, or this is my wetness, or my contraction, or my feeling of soft or hard. So bringing it back to the beginning of what these bodies really are before we start spinning a story around them. And at the same time also it gives a feeling of enrichment through this direct connection to something so much vaster than ourselves. And enrichment automatically enables us to let go a little bit fuller. So, these practices are very ancient practices, and the quality of the elements, is the same, has always been the same since the elements are around on this planet. They have always been such like, even, they have been forming and reforming and connecting and doing their processing, since such a long, long time. But in this moment, they are making up these bodies of ours. And we can, use those practices to have this direct experience that we never really cut the umbilical cord towards the planet. We are constantly in exchange with it. We're never separate. From the, day we are born, coming out of our mother's wombs, then the umbilical cord is cut towards the mother, but the umbilical cord towards the planet is never cut. Because we need to eat and we need to drink, we need to breathe, we go to the bathroom, we sweat and we cry. There's always an exchange, there's always a call and response. From the very first moment we are born until we die, and then we go back into the planet where we came from in the first place. And then at one point, we emerge out of it again. And that's like a mysterious process. And it also prepares us to the vastness, you know, from which we have emerged and which we go back into when we die. To emerge out of it again and go back into it again. And all, you know, of the soil on this planet, it's made up of lots of ancestors of ours. Human beings and animals, plants, minerals, all of that, you know, is a constant recycling of those elements forming into different beings and then falling apart and emerging again. It's an amazing mystery which we can, you know, notice more fully rather than thinking about it, to really experiencing it in our own awareness. And then that will change, you know, our narratives about who we are and what we're doing here. And that's what's so needed right now, you know, at this time where, you know, the mechanistic worldview as the planet as a machine which need to be fixed is just no longer holding. It's not a truck, you know, which needs to be fixed, the planet, which is not performing well, and we just need to do a little thing here and there, and then it's gonna do everything what we want. That's ideas, you know, those ideas have died already. And now we need to find a new way how to participate here. You know, as a human being, what can we really do in order to feel at home here? Because it's our home. We are in a powerful time, and we are very lucky to have a practice, because without a practice, it's even much harder and much more challenging. So, you know, without further ado, I'd say we could just like now go into the meditation together. And maybe before we start with the meditation, you can just have a look, you know, at the screen and see there's, you know, people here. We are not alone. There's also other people who are, you know, at this threshold, evolutionary threshold. We are all together doing this. And maybe some of those people you know on the screen, some are new to you, just checking it out. And just, you know, we are participants. We are creating this space together. And it's not, you know, an entertainment place. If you don't know what to do tonight, you just come to the Dhamma talk, but it's about cultivating your mind and your heart, and, you know, feeling whatever you feel, and turning towards it. Because through these bodies of ours, we are directly connected with the planet herself, and that planet is a living, intelligent being. We can learn to respect and attune with. Or, you know, if you want to stay children, then we just hope for somebody else to do it for us. But if we want to be taking it on, you know, to mature and be a true Homo sapiens, then we have to just face up to this. And, you know, using this ancient teaching to give us like a handle on who we are, really, underneath all of the stories and the thinking. So just, let's find a posture we can sustain for about 45 minutes or so. And just, sensing your body sitting on the cushion or on the chair. And just feeling your aliveness. Sensing your aliveness. And if you're noticing that your mind wanders off into want to think about something, just gently bring it back to sensing your body sitting and breathing in and breathing out. So, bringing that capacity back to sense and feel our lives and our aliveness. Knowing that not paying attention to feelings, makes us able to do all kinds of really unskillful things without much discomfort, because we are just tuning out, numbing ourselves, just bringing that aliveness back into our awareness and allowing ourselves to deeply feel and sense our bodies. Because through this deep feeling and sensing our bodies, we can update our stories about ourselves. That's exactly what the world needs right now. And if there's like a sense, of doubt or maybe fear, to do this, to really deeply sense the body, that's okay. That can be part of the experience. And that's why it's so much better to do it together, because we need each other for safety and we need each other for holding space for learning. And doing things together, act together. Community is crucial for our own health as mammalians and for planetary health as well, because planetary health is influenced by us and by our behavior. So we are directly connected with the planet through the body. And now we're going to do this elements meditation to have a direct experience of that truth. And you don't need to do anything in particular, just following my guidance, allowing your mind to respond. No need to effort in any way, just staying with what you're hearing and what you're feeling as a response to the hearing, what you're sensing. And we're going to do body scans. The first scan, we're going to start on the top of the head. And the first element we're going to work with is the earth element, which is, hardness as opposed to softness and structure. And we can sense that in the bones, in the teeth, which are the tips of the bones, in the fingernails. And you could just, maybe touch one of your fingernails and have a direct experience of that hardness as opposed to softness. That's the quality of earth element. And then we're going to start sweeping down from the top of the head and being aware of the skull bones and the hardness, earth element. And then we're sweeping over the head to the neck. The vertebrae of the neck, hardness, earth element. And then we're coming to one shoulder, shoulder bones, hardness, earth element. Just staying with your awareness in the area I'm mentioning, and then allowing that perception to arise in your mind. You don't need to force anything. And then we come to the upper arm, the bones in there, hardness, earth element. And then the lower arm, hardness, earth element. And the hand, many little bones, hardness, earth element. And then the other shoulder, hardness, earth element. The other upper arm, hardness, earth element. The lower arm, hardness, earth element. The other hand, hardness, earth element. Then we're coming to the torso with the spine and the rich heart. the pelvis, the hips, hardness, earth element. The right upper leg, hardness, earth element. The lower leg, hardness, earth element. The foot, hardness, earth element. And then the other upper leg, hardness, earth element. The lower leg, hardness, earth element. And the other foot, hardness, earth element. This whole body is permeated by earth element. Earth element internally and earth element externally in the mountains and the rocks is exactly the same earth element. Earth element is empty, empty of a self. And if you don't ingest earth elements through food for 1 or 2 months, the body is going to shut down and fall apart. So there's a constant exchange happening between the planet and the body. We never cut the umbilical cord. We have roots in the planet just like a tree. They are not visible, they are energetic roots, but nevertheless, there's a constant exchange. And that's, boggles the mind. If the mind usually does not consider this, the mind might react, a bit confused and kind of doesn't know what to do with it. Just experience that. Allow that to just boggle you. That's fine. It's like updating the biocomputers. Through a direct experience. And breathing into the body. Allowing that to inform you, to become integrated into your form. Making space for that. And then, next element is the water element, which we can experience in the flesh, because the flesh, is permeated by different liquids, blood and lymph. We can also experience it in the mouth, the eyes, redness, cohesion. If, earth element isn't mixed with water element, it can't make a form, because the water element gives it cohesion through the wetness. And there's also fluidity, as those liquids curse through the body. So we feel that in the flesh, we can sense that, the softness of the flesh. And we start with the feet, both feet, feeling water element, sensing water element in the softness of the flesh. Knowing that this body is 75% consisting of water. And then from the feet, we are sweeping up to the lower legs, flesh, water element. And then the upper legs, flesh, water element. And then the pelvis, flesh, water element. Torso, with all of the internal organs, flesh, water element. The hands, flesh, water element. The lower arms, flesh, water element. The upper arms, flesh, water element. Shoulders, flesh, water element. Neck, flesh, water element. The head, flesh, water element. This whole body is permeated by water element. Water element internally and water element externally, as the rivers and lakes, the rains and the oceans is exactly the same water element. Water element is empty, empty of a self. If you don't drink water element for 5 days or so, the body is going to shut down and die. We're in constant exchange with the biosphere for water. And, water can only, shape a body if it has a certain temperature. If it's too hot, it evaporates. If it's too cold, it freezes. So we have a limited temperature range within which these bodies can exist. And that brings us to the next element, the fire element, which stands for temperature, hot and cold. And we become aware of temperature on the skin, or also in the mouth, or on the palms of our hands, or under our arms. So we can again sweep from the top of the head over the face, feeling your skin and fire element. As the air in the room, touches the skin of your face. And then the neck, skin, fire element. And sweeping to the shoulders, skin, fire element. Down over both arms, skin, fire element. The hands, skin, fire element. The torso, skin, fire element. Hips, skin, fire element. Legs, skin, fire element. And the feet, skin, fire element. This whole body is permeated by fire element. Fire element internally and fire element externally, coming from the sun or from, burning fossil fuels, burning wood. It's all the same fire element. Fire element is empty of a self. And this body can only live in a certain temperature range. We can extend that through housing and clothing and heating, but it's limited what can be done. Outside of the temperature range, the body shuts down and falls apart. And heat is the result of friction. And that brings us to the next element, the wind element, which stands for motion, contraction and expansion, pressure, movement. And we can become aware of it in the breathing process. As the chest expands and contracts with the breathing. Breathing in oxygen, which is released by the plant life around us. This deep constant interconnectedness with all plant life around us. So all these more than human intelligences, which are so deeply intertwined with our own existence, we can learn, to pay attention to that more. And listening into that. These different life forms, which are much longer around than we are. Millions of years, where our species is just here for about 200,000 years. It's very, very immature, very new, the latest arrival here. Just looking at ourselves in this very different way. And the way we are looking at something is the basis for what we see. And quantum physics, teaches us that by, if we're looking at a speck, if we want to pin down the motion, it presents itself as wave. If we want to see the location, it presents itself as particle. So whatever we are looking for, it presents itself in a different way. And so it is, with our own existence. If we look at it with a certain narrative, it presents itself in a certain way. If we leave that narrative behind, we can grow out of that into something more realistic. And this element meditation is a skillful means to outgrow that old separatist, mechanistic narrative, mind over matter and all of that stuff, which was once, great news, but now it's like, it needs to go. It really kills us. If we don't give it up. Because the planet is not in a crisis, it's us. The human species is in a crisis, indeed. Because we have, so proliferated. We can no longer live in this old narrative. The resources are not able to support this. We need to outgrow it. We need to leave it behind. And we can, if we choose it. So always, be coming back to the body. How are you feeling? What are you sensing? As you experience this in your own body. The truth, that this body is deeply interconnected with the planet herself. And allowing the breath to take you deeper into the body, sensing whatever reactions are there, just noticing. Noticing the breathing process. And with the in-breath, allowing yourself to really deeply sense your body. And with the out-breath, relaxing into the spaciousness. Space is the fifth element. This body, sitting in space. Space doesn't end at the walls of the room. The space is limitless space. And allowing your mind to expand by listening into that space, the silence. Just gently allowing yourself to relax into the space. The limitless space, which is expanding as we are sitting here, the universe is expanding. And through this meditation, we are basically connecting with our being in a different way than usual. Taking in different data than usual. And outgrowing certain assumptions about who we are. And what has brought us here, what we are doing here, actually. seeing things in a much bigger context. And then, we can just let go of the spaciousness of the space and just becoming aware of that which knows about the space. Consciousness. Limitless consciousness, just like the space. That which knows about the space. Consciousness which, effortlessly reflects like a mirror everything which is before it. So making, consciousness becoming aware of itself, kind of a U-turn, dropping the space and consciousness being aware of itself. The mirror being aware of its capacity to reflect. All objects, which are rising and ceasing, are seen for what are experienced for what they are, and then they cease again. And allowing that flow, not interfering with that flow, but just being aware of the knowing itself. And noticing, how that feels if the mind isn't clinging or holding on to anything. A sense of ease and contentment, not through having or controlling, but through opening and allowing. So the consciousness, limitless consciousness, is sensing that vastness. Then, we're slowly coming to the end of the meditation. So, even the most sublime state of mind has an end. And just coming back to feeling the weight of the body on the cushion, on the chair. And slowly, getting ready to end the meditation. So, if you like, we can take some time for maybe if you'd like to share something or clarify something. That'd be a good time. You could just unmute yourself and speak into the space, or if you prefer to write it into the chat, that'd be okay too. Have you done this kind of meditation before, elements meditation? Yes or no? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You did. Good.
But not like this.
Yes, but not 6 elements.
Okay. How is the element of consciousness connected to the what? Don't see the whole question, I think. And did you want to ask a question? Because I see you raise your hand.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I have, I'm sure, too many questions to ask, but I want to
Keep it simple.
thank you for this beautiful meditation. I have a feeling that, or after listening to you talk, that Earth is my friend, or wants to be anyway, and that it's more than my friend, really, my kind of my special friend, my girlfriend, my mother, my girl,
Mother, yeah.
my goddess,
Yeah.
and that she's involved in, she's trying to evolve. My species is sort of interfering with her, with her wholesome pursuit of evolution, but perhaps we have the opportunity to rewrite our agenda and to write a new agenda where we don't interfere with her work, but that we join it in with it, that we have an invitation to become active partners in not only her evolution, but my own personal evolution as a man, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's a very good way of looking at it. I agree, you know. Yeah, great, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And Victoria.
Yes, thank you for that beautiful meditation. I'm so glad it was recorded because I look forward to listening to it again. I've actually done this meditation, I think, with you before at Spirit Rock, I mean, on Zoom, but anyway, I'm so glad to see you again.
Thank you.
And you might be able to anticipate my question. If you could talk just a little bit about how you view the role of the arts and creativity in this growing up process. As you said, we have to grow up and take responsibility, and how you feel that the arts and creativity can assist in that process.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, that the arts can really help us to communicate certain concepts, you know, which are difficult to communicate with words, you know. And I think the arts can really oil the wheels, you know, of this, of the processing of this new information, and is a communication tool. And that's also why I, you know, have created this space here, because I think if the work is externalized, you know, through symbols, that really helps us, you know, to be more held in that process. And so, yeah, the arts are very important at this time to become part of the way, you know, how the Dharma is transmitted. And my first teacher, Ajahn Buddhadasa, a forest monk in Thailand, you know, he had, like, even in the you know, when I was there in the late 80s, but it was already there for longer, he had an art gallery which he used for teaching, and it was called the Spiritual Theater. And I found that was a brilliant idea. It was in the jungle of South Thailand. You know, it built it in a very small village. Together with the villagers, helped him to build it. It was quite an outstanding idea, I found. And now, after many years, you know, of training and teaching, I finally had the opportunity to make a small experiment by, you know, creating this room here. And ideally, what I would like to, I'd like it to evolve into something more permanent, a kind of an earth temple, because I think that would really help us, you know, to be more focused in what we really need to realize. And I think, I'm sorry, I'm coughing. You know, churches and temples and so on, they have always been places, you know, where where the qualities which we want to develop, they are externalized through art, in order, you know, to give us like a compass. And I'm hoping that this earth room can function in a similar way. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Oiling the wheels, you know, of the heart and the mind, because
I love that.
It's hard.
And also the connection between creativity and nature, how nature in its diversity reflects a kind of the creative impulse of Gaia.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was I wanted you to share that with the group, so I'm glad that you did. Thank you.
You know, apropos, because you're saying this, you know, on Wednesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. I have a guided meditation, you know, on the process of updating, you know, our minds. And if anyone is interested, you could check it out on the website.
So it's on Zoom?
Yeah. Yet every Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I saw how is consciousness related to the earth. I mean, you know, we are conscious of the earth through consciousness. And, you know, the whole universe, we can consciously tune into the universe. So consciousness is limitless. And consciousness is, the quality of consciousness is knowing, just like a mirror, you know, can reflect any object put in front of it without doing anything. It's just, this is the nature of a mirror, is to reflect. So the nature of consciousness is to know. And that's something, you know, which is like a bunch of words. I don't think it's very helpful, but in the meditation, you can experience it for yourself. Irene.
So just to follow up on that same question. So you're saying that consciousness is unconditioned, so it's not within us?
I think we are in consciousness.
You're in consciousness. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. The whole universe is in consciousness.
Thank you.
Consciousness isn't the result, you know, of the brain doing something and then creating consciousness, but the brain, you know, does something, the thinking, but consciousness knows, and this is not the same. But it's something, you know, very difficult to kind of put into words. This is why there are so many different schools and lineages and books in Buddhism, you know, because everyone interprets and explains this in a different way. And they are all, you know, signposts, which are, you know, pointing somewhere, and then we need to investigate for ourselves. We need to look, and then we will know for ourselves. But the map is not the territory. But the map can help us, you know, to stumble along and find out for ourselves. But we need to do it ourselves. And we can take those signposts as support. But if we hold on to the signposts, then it's not really working. And it's like the finger pointing towards the moon. We need then to turn around and look at the moon, and then we know. Same, you know, with those kind of questions. We could discuss it endlessly, but in the end, it's only words, and words are only symbols, and what they mean for you or what it means for me could be something completely different. So it's quite, you know, subtle. This is why the Buddha's, you know, the Buddha's body of work is mainly prescriptive and not descriptive, because he wanted to not get, you know, caught in a philosophy, but it's a practice. Carson.
Hey, hi, it's Kason. I was just getting ready to lower my hand because I didn't want to venture too far into the philosophical based on what you just said. But I was just going to follow up on Irene's question about consciousness and just ask whether in your opinion and in your experience, is consciousness local?
No.
Right. That's what I thought you would say.
It's like an ocean, you know, like I'm swimming in a consciousness.
Yeah.
And if it's all a manner of speaking, you know, like if I, for example, in that meditation, if I point my mind, I can become conscious of consciousness.
Yeah. Thank you.
you.
I guess I muted me again. I don't want to take up too much space here, but I love that you're swimming in consciousness and universal cosmic consciousness and awareness, and that I love that, and that you've, as I understand it, tried to create theater to communicate this with to other seekers, and we can see one wall of the room that you've created behind you, and you showed us the other walls at the beginning of it. It's beautiful. I wish that I could be in there and you could walk me around your room and point to this and say, you see you see here, but like that. But what if we don't have like any walls let's to make a room on like you have, we have to live on the street, let's say. Would your recommendation be that we carry the idea of creating a cosmic consciousness in the theater of the street, or the theater on the street, or in the streets, at the supermarket, the theater on the bus, as we're going to pick up our welfare checks, that we can and use the walls of the bus and the other people who are sitting on the bus as being objects of our reflection into and our identification with and act within, play within, dance with. Think of some creative, wholesome way that we can be with them, and in that way take our practice into our mundane daily life, and perhaps spread it to other people too.
Sure, you can do that.
Thank you.
It's just maybe a little bit more difficult, but it can be done, yeah. And it's good, to have like a bit of a, supportive environment first to become more settled in the practice and more grounded in it, and then we take it everywhere. That's why we practice, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just good, to have meeting places like you have this Zoom room, where you meet together, and then you go out into your life. And the same, is like we have different meeting places in the world as well. And then we go out, and if the practice doesn't really change our lives and the way how we are living, then it's not worth very much, right?
Yeah.
That's why we practice. Totally. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. There's something in the chat, maybe. Victoria.
I was wondering, since I'm not sure how it works with ordination, but did you choose your name, Santacitta?
No, my teacher gave me that name.
He gave it to you, but I don't know what the Santa, I know Santa from the Latin, but I don't know what it means in
Pali?
In Pali, yeah.
It means peace.
Oh, peace. But Citta, I always feel it suits you so well because of the unity of heart and mind, if I understand it right.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Citta means heart, mind, yeah.
Yeah, and so the heart, could you talk a little bit about the heart, mind, the Citta in relationship to this idea of consciousness?
The Citta is here. The Citta is, the Citta is that which knows, and in a way, if we speak about the Citta here, but then we can also speak about and there's so many different, every teacher speaks about it every school of Buddhism speaks about it in a different way. And there is like probably 100 different, views on this. But in a big way, you could say that Chitta is that which knows, and we can connect with it inside of ourselves, but also we are inside of it.
Mhm.
So this is the mystery of all of this. Nobody can really, with a dualistic language, we can't really capture what Chitta is or what consciousness is. This is why there have been over the centuries so many different schools of Buddhism, so many different books written, and one teacher says no, it's like this, and the other one says no, it's like that, and they are all right, because there is no one right way. But what is important is what works for you, that you are experiencing less suffering, what helps you to transform and let go of greed, hatred, and delusion. That's the way for you, and any practice which achieves that is the right practice for you. And however they describe what consciousness is or what Chitta is, because I no longer belong to just one school. I was trained in the Thai forest tradition. But there's the Thai forest tradition is just one school of, inside of Buddhism.
Mhm.
And that school speaks about, awareness and consciousness as that which is, in a way how I have been guiding us now with the sixth element. That's how in the Thai forest tradition that is spoken about. But then you can go to another school of Buddhism and they say, no, it's not like this, So you have to find out for yourself what works for you. But I can't give an objective, universal answer to those questions, And they are not really so important, actually, to clarify. But what's really important is, how are you right now, and how is your mind? Is there greed present or not? Is there ill will present or not? That's the way. And this is how we start to practice. And then certain questions, they just fall away,
Mhm.
And they are not answered, that you then have an answer and you have it on a piece of paper, the page number, and that's it. But it's more, that's not something you can really answer with language. But you can say, okay, I belong to this school and they answer it like that. Or I belong to that school and they answer it like that. And then you pick yours, So that's, and then what's really important is to have the patience to be with the confusion, and be with the wish that I want to know. I want to find somebody who once for all answers me that question, and then I put it in a frame and hang it on the wall, and that's it, that wanting for clarity, but we can never arrive at clarity in that way. But you need to do it long enough to give up, and then clarity arises. But not by grasping something or pinning it down, nailing it down, that's it. But more it's a different way, by being so endlessly frustrated that the mind just lets go. That's how the practice works, that's why it takes long, because you have to exhaust a lot of avenues, until you finally are willing to let go and give up and say, it doesn't work that way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you, everybody for coming, for doing the work. And I think maybe, Irene, do you think we can close now, or what would you think?
Absolutely, I think we can. And just a reminder to everybody that if you want to participate in the practice of the giving and receiving of the Dhamma, you can go to the website for Aloka Vihara. I posted it several times in the chat. It's also on the Dharma Talk series webpage. So I'm sure it would be very much appreciated. And we appreciate you all coming tonight.
Thank you. And I can just maybe end, with a short, very short blessing chant, sharing the good energy of our meeting and of your efforts, and your interest in practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Buddhas. May you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Dhamma. May you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you by the power of all the Sangha. May you ever be well. Okay, sadhu.